Have you ever felt completely surrounded by people, yet still empty inside? You laugh, you talk, you post the pictures, but deep down, something feels missing. You start to wonder, why is it that even with so many connections, I still feel alone? The truth is, sometimes we confuse being connected with being fulfilled. We think happiness comes from people, but it doesn't. And until we understand that, we'll keep chasing shadows instead of light. You know, one of the biggest lessons life teaches us over and over again is this: love people, but don't attach your happiness to them. It sounds simple, but living it is one of the hardest things we'll ever have to learn. Because our hearts are naturally drawn to people. We love, we care, we connect, and that's not wrong. We were created to love. We were created to feel compassion and to build bonds. But the problem begins when that love becomes our oxygen, when it becomes something we cannot live without. When you tie your happiness to a person, you're giving them a kind of power that no human being should have. You're saying, my peace depends on you. My mood depends on you. My worth depends on how you treat me. And that's too heavy for any person to carry. Because people are fragile, they're human, they're not constant. One day they're close, the next day they're distant. One moment they understand you, the next they misunderstand you completely. People change, and that's part of life. But when your peace is tied to something that changes, your peace will change with it. Think about it. Have you ever noticed how your emotions can shift so quickly because of how someone acted toward you? They didn't text you back, and suddenly your whole day feels heavy. They said something kind, and now everything feels bright again. You're happy, then hurt, then hopeful, then anxious, all depending on what someone else did or didn't do. That's what happens when our hearts become dependent on people. We're constantly at the mercy of their actions. It's exhausting, isn't it? You see, love isn't the problem. The problem is attachment. Attachment means I can't be okay unless you're here. I can't feel valuable unless you validate me. I can't be at peace unless you approve of me. That's not love, that's need. And when we love from need, we start to suffocate both ourselves and the people we love. Because no one can carry the weight of being your entire source of happiness. True love, on the other hand, gives freedom. It allows people to be human, to come and go, to make mistakes, to grow. True love is not possessive, it's not desperate, it's peaceful. When you love from a place of inner wholeness, you can give love freely without demanding that it fills your emptiness. You can appreciate people without depending on them to make you feel complete. So how do we begin to love without attachment? The first step is awareness. You have to start noticing the patterns in your heart. When someone disappoints you, ask yourself, why does this hurt so much? Sometimes it's not just what they did, it's what they represent. Maybe you've made that person your source of comfort. Maybe you've tied your identity to their presence. When that happens, their absence feels like losing a part of yourself. But that's a sign that your heart has been misplaced. Our hearts were never designed to find stability in people. The heart was created to find peace in something permanent, something unchanging. That's why even the best human love can't give you the kind of peace you're looking for. Because even the most loving person cannot be everywhere with you. They can't always understand you perfectly. They can't always stay. Sometimes, the very relationships we depend on the most are the ones that teach us this lesson the hardest way. You might love someone deeply, and suddenly they're gone by choice, by distance, or by life itself, and you feel shattered. But with time, you realize that what truly broke you wasn't just the loss, it was the dependency. Because you believed that your happiness lived in them, and when they left, it felt like your happiness walked out the door too. But here's the beautiful truth. When your heart is anchored in something higher, when your sense of peace and worth comes from a place that never fades, then you can love people without fear. You can love them without needing to control them. You can love them without falling apart when they change or leave. Because your happiness doesn't live inside them, it lives within you, connected to something eternal. Loving people is meant to be an act of giving, not grasping. You give care, you give kindness, you give support, but you don't take your identity from how much they give back. The moment you start needing someone to constantly feed your sense of worth, you've placed your value in the wrong hands. People cannot sustain your soul. They can complement your journey, yes, but they can't be the foundation of it. I want you to think about a tree. When its roots are deep and firmly grounded, the wind can blow as hard as it wants. The tree might sway, but it won't break. That's what happens when your heart is rooted in the right place. You can face changes in relationships, you can face loss, but you won't lose yourself. Because your stability doesn't depend on who stays or who goes. And maybe that's what true strength is. Not the absence of emotion, not pretending you don't care, but learning to love without losing yourself. It's being able to give and connect deeply, yet still stand tall even when you're alone. That kind of love is not weak, it's powerful. Because it's not born from desperation, it's born from wholeness. You don't stop loving people, you just stop worshiping them. You stop putting them on a pedestal that only something eternal deserves. You start seeing them for what they are, beautiful, imperfect, temporary companions on your journey. You love them, you appreciate them, but you don't let them define your happiness. So maybe the next time you find yourself saying, I can't live without this person, pause for a moment and remind yourself you can. You really can. Because your ability to live, to find peace, to be whole, doesn't come from them. It comes from within you. It comes from the one who made you. When you understand this, love becomes lighter. You stop holding people so tightly that you crush them. You stop clinging so hard that you lose your breath. You start to love in a way that frees both you and them. And in that freedom, you'll find peace. So love people, yes. Cherish them. Be kind. Be gentle. But don't attach your happiness to them. Because happiness that depends on people will always be fragile. But happiness that depends on something eternal will never break. You know, we live in a world that tells us constantly that being alone is a problem. That if you're not surrounded by people, something must be wrong. We're taught to fill every silence with noise, every pause with company, and every quiet moment with distraction. But what if I told you that solitude isn't a punishment? What if being alone is actually one of the greatest gifts you could ever be given? We often confuse solitude with loneliness. They look the same on the outside. You're by yourself, maybe sitting quietly, maybe walking alone, but inside, they're completely different experiences. Loneliness is emptiness. Solitude is fullness. Loneliness is the pain of being without people. Solitude is the peace of being with yourself. One drains you, the other restores you. You see, when you can be alone and still feel whole, that's when you know you found something real inside you. But most of us never reach that place because we run from silence, we run from stillness. We don't want to be left alone with our thoughts because we're afraid of what we might find there. We keep ourselves busy, scrolling, talking, working, anything to avoid being alone. But what we're really avoiding is ourselves. And yet, it's in that very silence where the most profound healing can happen. Because when you stop running, when you finally sit with yourself, you start to see things clearly. You begin to understand what's really going on in your heart. Maybe you've been carrying pain for years that you never allowed yourself to feel. Maybe you've been defining your worth by what people think of you. Solitude brings all that to the surface, not to punish you, but to heal you. There's something deeply sacred about being alone. In solitude, you learn to listen not to the noise of the world. You begin to notice the subtle ways your heart speaks, the soft nudges that get drowned out in crowds and conversations. Solitude helps you rediscover your own voice, the one that's not influenced by anyone else's opinions or expectations. When you spend time alone, you also start to see your patterns more clearly. You notice how much of your happiness depends on being seen, on being validated, on being surrounded. You begin to realize how often you've tried to fill your emptiness with people, with attention, with distraction. And in that awareness, something shifts. You begin to see that peace doesn't come from the presence of people, it comes from the presence of meaning. Solitude teaches you how to be enough for yourself. And that's such a powerful place to reach. Because once you're comfortable being alone, you're free. You're no longer desperate for company, no longer afraid of silence, no longer dependent on someone else to make you feel okay. You can enjoy people without clinging to them. You can walk away from what hurts without feeling like you're losing everything. You can breathe. Now, don't misunderstand this. Being alone doesn't mean cutting yourself off from love or community. It doesn't mean isolating yourself out of bitterness. It means learning how to fill your cup before you pour it into others. Because if you keep trying to pour from an empty heart, you'll only end up exhausted. Solitude allows you to refill. It gives you space to reconnect to yourself, to your purpose, and to something greater than yourself. There's a kind of clarity that only comes in silence. When you step away from the constant noise of life, the opinions, the expectations, the endless comparison, you begin to see who you really are without all the layers. You start to remember what matters and what doesn't. The stillness begins to strip away everything false until all that's left is truth. Sometimes solitude is the classroom of the soul. It's where growth happens. It's where you learn that you don't have to chase people to feel loved. You don't have to keep performing to feel seen. You don't have to keep proving yourself to feel worthy. You start realizing that your worth has always been there, quietly waiting for you to notice it. It's also where you begin to build your relationship with your creator in the most personal way. When you're alone, with no one to impress, no one to distract you, that's when you can truly open your heart. You can speak honestly, you can reflect deeply, You can finally hear the response that's always been there, but was drowned out by the world's noise. Solitude becomes not an absence of people, but a presence of peace. You see, when you can be happy alone, it changes everything about how you relate to others. Because now, you're no longer seeking people out of need, you're choosing them out of love. You offer presence. You don't cling. You connect. You don't fear being left. You trust that what's meant for you will stay. That shift turns relationships from a source of anxiety into a source of peace. The truth is, you'll never truly enjoy being with people until you've learned how to enjoy being with yourself. If you're uncomfortable in your own company, you'll always use others as an escape. But once you find peace in solitude, every connection becomes richer, deeper, freer. Because now, you're not trying to fill a void, you're sharing from a place of wholeness. So maybe the next time you find yourself alone, don't rush to fill the silence. Don't reach for your phone. Don't drown it out with noise. Just sit for a moment, breathe, feel the quiet. Notice how the world doesn't collapse when no one is around. Notice that you can still smile, still feel, still exist fully. That is strength. Solitude is not about the absence of people. It's about the presence of self. It's about returning home to your own heart. And when you can find peace there, when you can truly sit with yourself without restlessness or fear, that's when you discover a deeper kind of happiness, one that no one can take away from you. So no, solitude isn't a punishment. It's a pause. It's the space where you meet yourself again. It's where you realize that you are not alone. You are simply being given the chance to listen, to heal, and to grow. And when you come back to the world after that, you don't come back empty, you come back full. You know, so many of us spend our entire lives searching for happiness. We look for it in success, in relationships, in recognition, in the approval of others. We tell ourselves, if I just get this one thing, then I'll finally be happy. But the truth is, happiness isn't something you find outside of yourself, it's something you build within. It's not something people can hand you or that circumstances can guarantee you. It's a state of peace that comes from alignment when your heart is connected to what truly matters. The problem is that we live in a world that constantly tells us happiness is out there. The next job, the next friendship, the next milestone, the next achievement, and so we keep chasing, we run from one thing to another, hoping that this time it'll fill the emptiness inside. And maybe for a while it does, but it never lasts, because everything outside of you is temporary. People change, moments fade, things lose their shine. If your happiness depends on something that can be taken away, you'll always live in fear of losing it. Have you ever noticed how fragile our happiness becomes when it's built on external things? We're happy when people praise us, but broken when they criticize us. We're content when life goes our way, but crushed when it doesn't. We're calm when things are stable, but anxious when they shift. That's because our sense of peace is built on a foundation that moves. And anything that moves cannot hold you steady. Real happiness is something deeper. It's not a feeling that comes and goes with the weather of life. It's a quiet confidence inside you. A steadiness that doesn't depend on what's happening around you. It's knowing that even when everything outside of you feels uncertain, There's something unshakable within you. The truth is, nothing external can fill an internal void. You can have all the love, all the success, all the validation in the world, and still feel empty. Because the emptiness we try to fill isn't physical, it's spiritual. It's not that we need more things, it's that we need more meaning. When the soul is disconnected from what gives it purpose, no amount of more will ever be enough. We think we need more people, more attention, more experiences, but what we really need is connection to something real, something eternal. The heart wasn't designed to find lasting peace in what changes. It was designed to find peace in what never changes. And that's why true happiness can only come when your heart is connected to your Creator. Because He is the only one who never leaves, never fails, never runs out. When your happiness depends on something unchanging, you become free. You can enjoy life without being enslaved by it. You can appreciate people without being consumed by them. You can love deeply without losing yourself in the process. Because your peace isn't being held hostage by anything temporary. And this is something we all have to learn the hard way. We chase things thinking they'll save us, relationships, status, recognition, but they only leave us more restless. There comes a moment in life when you finally realize that nothing out there can give you what you're looking for. And that realization isn't meant to make you hopeless, it's meant to set you free. Because now you can stop searching in the wrong places. It's like trying to quench your thirst with salt water. The more you drink, the thirstier you get. That's what it's like to seek happiness in external things. It looks satisfying for a moment, but it only leaves you craving more. You start depending on people to make you feel loved, depending on success to make you feel worthy, depending on the world to make you feel enough. But every time one of those things changes or disappears, so does your peace. Real happiness begins the moment you stop chasing and start returning to yourself, to your purpose, to the one who made you. When your heart learns to draw peace from its connection to something higher, you no longer need life to go perfectly to feel okay. You can find meaning even in pain, lessons even in loss, and gratitude even in the smallest moments. And here's something many people misunderstand. Happiness isn't the absence of hardship. It's the presence of peace within hardship. Life will never be free of challenges. People will still disappoint you. Plans will still fail. Moments will still hurt. But when your happiness is built on something solid, you can bend without breaking. You can grieve without despair. You can struggle without losing hope. That kind of peace doesn't come from pretending everything is fine. It comes from trusting that even when things aren't fine, you'll be okay. Because you're anchored in something unshakable. That's real happiness. It's quiet, it's deep, it's steady. It doesn't shout, it rests. When you start to understand this, your entire perspective changes. You stop chasing happiness like it's something hiding in the next chapter of your life. You start realizing that it's been available all along inside you, waiting to be nurtured. You begin to see that happiness isn't about getting everything you want, it's about being grateful for what you have and trusting in what's still to come. You stop saying, "I'll be happy when," and you start saying, "I can be happy now." Because happiness isn't a destination, It's a way of seeing. It's a shift from constantly asking what's missing to appreciating what's already there. And the moment you start living like that, the world around you changes. Not because it actually changes, but because you do. You stop being tossed around by every high and low. You stop being afraid of loss. You stop depending on people to validate your worth. You become whole. So, remember this. Happiness that depends on the world will always be temporary. But happiness that depends on peace within will last. Because when your heart is right, when your priorities are aligned, when your connection to what's eternal is strong, then no matter what happens, you'll be okay. You'll find that the truest kind of happiness isn't loud or dramatic. It's quiet, steady, rooted. It's sitting in silence and still feeling content. It's being alone and still feeling full. It's knowing that your peace doesn't come from who's beside you, but from who's inside your heart. And that's when you'll finally realize you were never meant to find happiness outside yourself. You were meant to build it from within. You know, one of the hardest truths we all have to face in life is this. Whenever your heart depends on something temporary, you will eventually feel pain. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Because everything in this world changes. People change, circumstances shift. What feels stable today can be gone tomorrow. And if your peace, your joy, or your self-worth are tied to something that moves, your heart will move with it. Dependency is a quiet kind of chain. It doesn't always feel like bondage at first. In fact, sometimes it feels good, it feels comforting. You depend on someone emotionally, and they show up for you, they make you feel safe, and it seems like everything is okay. But over time, you start realizing that your mood, your confidence, even your faith in yourself start to depend on how they treat you, how often they show up, or whether they approve of you. Without noticing it, you've built your peace on someone else's shoulders. And here's the problem with that. People were never meant to carry the weight of your peace. They're human, imperfect, inconsistent, unpredictable. They can love you deeply one day and still fail you the next. They can promise forever and still walk away. And when your emotional stability depends on them, their every action begins to control your state of mind. If they're kind, you're happy. If they pull away, you crumble. You become a prisoner to their behavior. Dependency brings pain because it creates illusion. It tricks you into believing that something fragile can give you lasting peace. It convinces you that if you just hold on tighter, you'll be safe. But the truth is, the tighter you hold on to people, the more you suffocate both them and yourself. And dependency is built on fear, the fear of loss, the fear of being alone, the fear of not being enough without someone else's reassurance. We depend on people, on relationships, on achievements, even on our own image of success to give us a sense of worth. But every one of those things can change or disappear. You start to fall apart because your identity was built on things that were never meant to hold you up. Let me tell you something important. There is only one who can hold the weight of your heart without breaking it. Only one who can handle your deepest fears, your constant need for reassurance, your search for peace. And that's the one who made you. Everything else, everyone else is temporary. They can comfort you for a while, they can walk beside you for a season, but they can't carry your soul. That's why pain often comes as a form of mercy. It's not always a punishment, sometimes it's protection. Sometimes that loss, that heartbreak, that disappointment, it's a way of being freed from false dependency. It's the moment when you're being called to recenter your heart, to put it back where it belongs. Because maybe if everything stayed perfect, you would have never realized that you were depending on the wrong things. Pain wakes you up. It reminds you that you've been holding on to something that cannot hold you back. It shows you where your attachments have become unhealthy. Every time your heart breaks because something changed, it's a signal. It's your soul's way of saying you placed your hope in something that was never meant to be your foundation. It's okay to love people. It's okay to care deeply, to build relationships, to dream, to want things. But the difference lies in where your center is. When your peace is centered on something unshakable, on faith, on purpose, on your connection with the one who never leaves, then even when things change, you can stay steady. You can lose something without losing yourself. Think of it like building a house. If you build on sand, every storm will destroy it. You'll have to keep rebuilding again and again. And each time, the process will hurt. But if you build on rock, the storms can come, and yes, you'll feel the wind, you'll feel the rain, but your house will stand. Dependency is building on sand. Faith is building on rock. Dependency makes you say, I can't live without this person. Faith teaches you, I can love this person deeply, but my life doesn't end if they leave. Dependency makes you cling in fear. Faith helps you hold with love, but also with peace. Because you know that what's meant for you will stay, and what isn't will be replaced with something better. The more your heart depends on people, the more fragile your happiness becomes. The more it depends on something eternal, the stronger and freer you become. You start to walk through life differently, not desperate, not constantly anxious about who might leave or what might change, but calm, grounded, because your peace doesn't live in anyone's hands. And that's the beauty of spiritual independence. It doesn't mean you stop loving or caring. It means you love in a way that's not driven by need. You love because it's part of who you are, not because you're afraid of being without. You love because you choose to, not because you must. That's when love becomes pure. That's when it becomes healing instead of heavy. When you start depending less on people and more on what's eternal, even your pain starts to make sense. You begin to see how every loss, every heartbreak, every unanswered prayer was not the end, it was a redirection. It was teaching you where true peace is found. So if you find yourself right now holding on to something too tightly, ask yourself, am I holding this out of love or out of fear? Am I depending on this person, this relationship, this dream to make me feel whole? Because if you are, it might be time to let go, not necessarily of the person, but of the need. Let go of the illusion that you can't be okay without them. When you release that dependency, something incredible happens. The pain begins to ease. The anxiety begins to soften. You begin to breathe again. You realize that your heart can still beat, that your life can still move forward, even when things change. You start to understand that peace was never lost. It was just buried under layers of attachment. Dependency brings pain because it ties your peace to what can leave. Freedom brings peace because it ties your heart to what never leaves. So love deeply, yes. Care sincerely. But let your heart depend only on the one who can hold it forever. Because when your heart depends on what's eternal, you'll never truly lose. You know, one of the most misunderstood ideas in this journey of the heart is detachment. Many people hear the word and think it means coldness, indifference, or not caring. They imagine detachment as shutting down your emotions, keeping your distance, or pretending not to need anyone. But that's not detachment. Detachment doesn't mean you stop loving. It means you stop clinging. It doesn't mean you stop caring, it means you stop depending. True detachment is love in its purest form. It's when you can love someone deeply, give freely, and still be okay if they walk away. It's when your happiness doesn't rise and fall with someone's presence or absence. It's when you can hold something in your hands and still say, if this leaves, I will be okay. Not because you don't value it, but because you know your peace doesn't come from it. That's what it means to be free. You see, when your love is filled with attachment, it becomes heavy. It becomes fearful. You're always worried, what if they change? What if they leave? What if I lose this? And that fear starts to control you. You stop being yourself. You start compromising your values, your peace, your truth, just to hold on. But that's not love, that's need. Love that comes from need is like a cage. You trap yourself, and you trap the other person too. You keep trying to hold tighter because you're scared of losing, but in doing so, you start losing yourself. You measure your worth by how much someone stays. You measure your peace by how much they give. And when they stop, you break. But love without attachment, that's freedom, that's peace. That's the kind of love that gives, not because it's desperate, but because it's full. You love because it's your nature to love, not because you're trying to fill an emptiness inside you. You give because your heart overflows, not because you're begging to be filled. When you love from wholeness instead of need, something beautiful happens. You stop trying to control outcomes. You stop trying to make people act a certain way so you can feel safe. You let people be who they are. You let life flow. And that's when love becomes healthy, because it's no longer about possession, it's about appreciation. This kind of love is strong because it's grounded in something unshakable. You're not using people as a source of happiness. You're sharing your happiness with them. You're not trying to take, you're trying to give. You're not saying, I need you to complete me. You're saying, I'm complete and I want to share this journey with you. And that's when relationships begin to thrive. Because when love is given freely, not out of fear, not out of insecurity, but out of peace, it creates space for both people to grow. You're not suffocating each other with expectations. You're not demanding constant reassurance. You're simply walking together, knowing that even if the paths separate, both hearts will still be okay. Now, I know this kind of detachment doesn't come easy. We live in a world that glorifies dependency. We're told that love means I can't live without you. Every song, every movie teaches us that needing someone completely is the ultimate expression of love. But that's not real love. That's emotional dependency disguised as romance. Real love says, I choose you, not because I need you to survive, but because I value you deeply. Real love says, I'm here because I want to be, not because I'm afraid to be alone. Detachment is not distance, it's balance. It's being close without losing yourself. It's being kind without becoming drained. It's being available without being consumed. It's giving your best to people while keeping your center anchored in something higher. When you love this way, you begin to experience relationships differently. You stop trying to fix everyone. You stop feeling responsible for everyone's emotions. You start understanding that you can be there for people without carrying their entire weight. You can empathize without absorbing. You can care without collapsing. And maybe that's one of the hardest lessons we have to learn, that we can't save everyone. We can't make people love us, stay with us, or treat us the way we wish they would. But we can control how much we let those things define us. Detachment teaches you to give your heart without handing over your power. When you begin to practice detachment, at first, it feels strange. It feels like you're losing something. You might even feel guilty, as if by letting go, you're being selfish. But with time, you realize you're not losing anything, you're gaining peace. You're gaining balance. You're gaining the ability to love more genuinely without fear. Because when love is free from attachment, it becomes pure. It becomes something that elevates instead of enslaves. You stop loving with conditions, I love you as long as you love me back. You start loving because it's a reflection of who you are, not because of what you expect to get in return. And that's the kind of love that lasts, even when people don't. So remember, detachment doesn't mean you stop feeling, it means you stop fearing. It doesn't mean you stop caring, it means you stop clinging. It doesn't mean you walk away from love, it means you learn how to walk in love without losing your footing. Love deeply, but lightly. Hold gently, not tightly. Give freely, not fearfully. Let your love be guided by peace, not by desperation, because in the end, the love that comes from strength, not need, is the love that heals. And when you reach that place, when you can love fully, yet still let go gracefully, you'll realize that you haven't lost anything at all. You've simply learned how to love in the way you were always meant to, with a heart that's free. You know, one of the most powerful and painful teachers in life is pain itself. It's strange, isn't it? How something that hurts so deeply can also hold the very lesson we need most. We spend so much time running from pain, trying to numb it, trying to distract ourselves from it. But what if, instead of running, we sat with it for a moment? What if we allowed pain to show us what it's really trying to say? Pain is not random. It's not meaningless. It's not there to destroy you. Pain is a mirror. It reflects back what's inside you. It shows you where your heart has been placed, where your attachments are, where your dependence lies. Every heartbreak, every disappointment, every loss is a message pointing you towards something deeper. Think about it. When you feel broken because someone left you, what is that pain really saying? It's saying that your heart was too tied to that person. When you feel devastated because something didn't go your way, it's showing you that your peace was attached to a certain outcome. Pain exposes what we've built our happiness on. And when that foundation isn't strong, the pain is a sign that it's time to rebuild. Pain has a way of waking us up. It interrupts the illusions we live in. We go through life thinking, as long as I have this person, as long as I get this job, as long as I reach this goal, I'll be okay. And then suddenly it's taken away and we fall apart. But maybe that falling apart isn't the end. Maybe it's the beginning of seeing clearly. Because it's in those moments of breaking that you finally realize what you were leaning on wasn't strong enough to hold you. Sometimes, pain is the only thing that can get our attention. When things are easy, we get comfortable. We stop reflecting. We stop asking deeper questions. But when something shakes us, when life feels uncertain, that's when we start searching. We start reaching for meaning, for truth, for something more stable. And often, it's in that search that we find what we were meant to find all along. Pain purifies. It burns away illusions. It strips away false identities. It removes the layers of ego and pride that build up when life feels smooth. It's through pain that you begin to see who you really are. And more importantly, who you've been depending on. When you're hurt because of people, you learn that people are limited. When you're disappointed by outcomes, you learn that control is an illusion. When you're left alone, you learn that you are never truly alone. Every form of pain teaches something essential if you allow it to. But the key is this: don't get stuck in the pain. Don't make pain your home. Let it be your teacher, not your identity. Pain is a messenger. It's not meant to stay forever. Once it delivers its message, once it helps you see what needs to be seen, you can release it. The lesson remains, but the suffering doesn't have to. There's a difference between pain and suffering. Pain is inevitable. It's part of being human. But suffering is when we resist the lesson. It's when we cling to what's gone, when we refuse to let go, when we keep replaying what hurt us instead of asking, what is this here to teach me? When you start to see pain through this lens, it transforms from something cruel into something sacred. It becomes a form of guidance. It becomes an invitation to return to yourself, to realign your heart, to remember where peace truly comes from. I've seen so many people, myself included, go through moments of deep loss and think, why me? Why this? But with time, you start to realize it was never meant to break you. It was meant to show you that you were building on the wrong thing. It was meant to redirect you. Sometimes God removes what we think we can't live without to show us that we can and that He is enough. It's in those moments of heartbreak that your heart learns humility. You stop thinking you can control everything. You stop assuming you know what's best. You start trusting. You start surrendering. Pain pushes you closer to truth. It softens your heart and deepens your perspective. And it's not just emotional pain. Even physical, mental, or spiritual pain can hold deep wisdom. It teaches patience. It builds compassion. It reminds you that this life is temporary, that nothing here lasts forever, and that's not meant to depress you, but to free you. When you stop expecting permanence from a temporary world, your heart starts to relax. You start appreciating what you have without clinging to it. You start loving people without expecting them to never change. You start living more peacefully because you've accepted the flow of life instead of fighting it. So, the next time pain knocks on your door, don't rush to shut it out. Sit with it for a moment. Ask it what it's trying to teach you. Maybe it's trying to show you that you've been depending too much on others. Maybe it's trying to show you that it's time to let go of an old version of yourself. Maybe it's showing you that your strength is greater than you thought, because that's another truth about pain. It reveals your strength. You never really know how strong you are until you're forced to face something that hurts. And when you come out of it, when you survive what you thought would destroy you, you realize that you've grown, you've evolved, you've shed layers you didn't need. In that way, pain is not just a mirror, it's a sculptor. It shapes you. It refines you. It makes you wiser, softer, and more grounded. And one day, when you look back, you'll see that the very thing that broke you was also the thing that built you. You'll realize that pain didn't just leave scars, it carved depth. It made you more real, more compassionate, more connected to what truly matters. So yes, pain is uncomfortable. It's messy. It's raw, but it's also meaningful. It's the bridge between who you were and who you're meant to become. Don't run from it, walk through it with faith, because on the other side of pain, there's always purpose. You know, one of the most beautiful realizations you can ever come to in your life is this: you are never truly alone. Even when it feels like everyone has left, even when it seems like no one understands, even when the silence feels heavier than your own heartbeat, you are not alone. Loneliness is one of the hardest feelings to carry. It's not just about being by yourself, it's about feeling unseen, unheard, unimportant. It's about feeling like you could disappear and no one would notice. And in those moments, it's easy to think that something is wrong with you. You start believing that you're not enough, or that you're somehow unworthy of love or companionship. But loneliness isn't always a curse. Sometimes it's a call. It's a whisper from the one who has been waiting for you to notice him. It's a divine invitation to turn inward, to reconnect with what's eternal. Because the truth is, no matter how many people surround you, no human being can fill the deepest space in your heart. That space was designed for something greater, for the one who created you. We spend so much of our lives chasing connection through people. We look for someone who will finally understand us, who will see us completely, who will love us without conditions. And yet, no matter how good a relationship is, it always falls short. Not because people don't care, but because they're human. They have limits. They can only give so much. They can only be there sometimes. But the one who made your heart, he has no limits. He's not restricted by time or place or human weakness. He's not distracted, busy, or unavailable. He doesn't get tired of listening. He doesn't misunderstand your silence. He's closer to you than your own breath. And the moment you turn to him, even in a whisper, that emptiness inside you begins to soften. Because the soul recognizes the one it was always made to be near. When you start to build that connection, something inside you changes. You begin to experience a kind of peace that doesn't depend on who's around. You stop needing people to constantly reassure you that you matter. You stop feeling desperate for attention or validation. Because now you've found something deeper, a love that doesn't come and go, a presence that never leaves. It's not that you stop caring about people, you still love them, you still enjoy connection and community, but your center shifts. Your heart no longer revolves around who stays and who leaves. It revolves around something constant. And that constancy gives you strength. When you truly internalize that you're never alone, solitude becomes easier to bear. You start to see quiet moments not as emptiness, but as opportunities for closeness with yourself and with the divine. You begin to feel a sense of companionship even in stillness. You start to realize that the one who brought you here, who carried you through every dark season, has never once left your side. Think back to your hardest moments. The nights you cried, the times you thought you couldn't go on, the moments you felt unseen, yet somehow you made it through. How? Who gave you the strength to keep going when you felt you had none? Who held your heart together when you thought it would break beyond repair? It wasn't luck. It wasn't coincidence. It was the quiet presence of the one who never abandoned you, even when you forgot him. You see, there's a kind of love that doesn't need to be loud to be real. It's not found in grand gestures or constant attention. It's found in the silent support that carries you through every storm. And that's what divine love feels like. It's subtle, steady, unshakable. The world teaches us that we need people to feel whole. But the truth is, once you've tasted that connection with something higher, you realize you can be alone without feeling lonely. Because loneliness is the absence of connection, not the absence of people. And when your heart is connected to the source of peace, you're never disconnected. This realization doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. It takes moments of stillness, of reflection, of learning to turn inward instead of outward every time you feel empty. It's about replacing the thought, no one is there for me, with there is one who has always been there. It's about remembering that your worth is not measured by who chooses you, but by the fact that you were already chosen by the one who made you. And when you live with that awareness, your entire life begins to shift. You stop chasing people out of fear. You stop settling for less than you deserve. You stop trying to fill your heart with what was never meant to fit there. You start walking with confidence, with peace, with purpose, because you know that even if everyone walks away, you'll still be okay. You'll still have love. You'll still have hope. You'll still have the one who never left. And that's the secret that changes everything. Once you experience that kind of companionship, you'll never crave the shallow versions again. You'll still appreciate human love, but you won't idolize it. You'll still build connections, but you won't be broken if they end. Because your foundation is no longer fragile, it's eternal. So if you're in a season right now where you feel alone, where the silence feels too loud and the emptiness feels unbearable, don't see it as abandonment. See it as an invitation. Maybe this is the moment you were meant to rediscover the one who's been with you all along. Maybe this is your call to return, to reconnect, to rest in something real. Because you are never truly alone. You never were. And once your heart understands that, once it rests in that truth, no kind of loneliness can ever truly defeat you again. There's a peace that comes when you realize that the one who made the stars is also holding your hand. That no matter where you go, no matter who stays or leaves, you are seen, you are heard, and you are loved completely. And that love, that presence is enough. After everything we've talked about, after all these lessons about love, pain, solitude, and peace, there's one truth that ties it all together. Your happiness was never meant to depend on people. It was never meant to live in things that can leave or change or fade. It was always meant to come from within, from your heart, from your connection to the one who never leaves. Life will always have its highs and lows. People will come and go. Some will love you deeply. Others will misunderstand you. Some will stay for a season, others for a lifetime. But through it all, one thing remains constant. The one who made you has never left your side. And when you anchor your heart in that truth, nothing can truly shake you. When you stop chasing people for happiness, you start finding peace in the simplest places. You start noticing beauty in quiet mornings. You start feeling content even in silence. You stop needing validation to feel worthy. You stop waiting for others to see your light, you start shining it for yourself. And that's the freedom we're all searching for. The kind of peace that doesn't break when people disappoint you. The kind of strength that doesn't fade when life gets hard. The kind of happiness that doesn't vanish when you're alone. That's the kind of happiness that lasts. Maybe for the first time, you begin to understand that being alone isn't the same as being lonely. Because once your heart is filled with the presence of peace, solitude becomes sacred. You start to realize that some of the most beautiful growth happens in silence, in the moments when it's just you and the one who knows you better than you know yourself. And when that connection deepens, your relationships with people change too. You start to love differently. You stop loving to fill an emptiness. You start loving because you're already full. You love without fear, without expectation, without desperation. Your love becomes lighter, purer, freer. You're no longer saying, I need you to make me whole. You're saying, I'm whole already, and I choose to share that wholeness with you. That's the kind of love that heals. So maybe the journey to happiness isn't about adding more people or more things into your life. Maybe it's about subtraction, removing the noise, the attachments, the expectations, the illusions that tell you you're incomplete. Maybe it's about simplifying your heart until only peace remains. And I want you to remember something. Pain isn't the enemy. Loneliness isn't the enemy. These things are teachers. They're mirrors. They're gentle or sometimes not so gentle reminders to return home, to stop searching for happiness in temporary places and start building it where it was always meant to live, within you. Every heartbreak you've felt, every disappointment you've carried, every silence you've sat through, they've all been shaping you. They've been teaching you what love is and what it isn't. They've been showing you what peace feels like when you stop fighting reality and start flowing with it. It's easy to look at your past and see only the pain. But I promise you, if you look a little closer, you'll also see the purpose. You'll see how every loss brought you closer to clarity. How every ending was a redirection, not a rejection. How every empty moment was a doorway to something higher. And that's the beauty of this journey. It's never really about losing people. It's about finding yourself. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you that you needed others to be complete. It's about rediscovering the peace that's been waiting for you all along. When your heart begins to rest in that truth, life becomes lighter. You stop clinging. You stop chasing. You start trusting. You start flowing. You start understanding that what's meant for you will find you and what isn't meant for you will leave, no matter how tightly you hold on. And both are forms of mercy. So as you move forward, carry this with you. Love people, but don't depend on them for your happiness. Be kind, but don't lose yourself in trying to please everyone. Be open, but stay anchored. Let people come and go without letting their presence or absence define you. Because happiness isn't about having everything you want. It's about being at peace with what you have and trusting that whatever is meant for you will never miss you. You can live in this world, love deeply, give freely, and still keep your heart light. You can care without clinging. You can be surrounded by people or completely alone and still feel whole. Because once your happiness comes from a source that never leaves, nothing else can take it away. And maybe that's what it truly means to be free, to walk through this world open-hearted, unafraid, and at peace, knowing that even if every person left tomorrow, you would still have enough. You would still be enough. Because the one who gave you life is the same one who gives you peace, and he's never left. So the next time you feel alone, remember this. You are not alone. You never were. And as long as your heart is connected to what's eternal, you will always have everything you need. True happiness doesn't come from being surrounded by people. It comes from being surrounded by peace. And peace doesn't come from outside. It comes when your heart finally rests with the one who never leaves. And when you reach that point, you'll realize you were never searching for happiness in the first place. You were searching for home.